Hello there, welcome back to my channel, where today I'm going to be doing my second video of my new series, Eye It or Buy It. Basically, this is a series where I talk about new or recent releases in the makeup world. It's got a strong bent towards eyeshadow palettes because that's what I love. And I'm going to tell you what I think of them, and in the comments below you can tell me what you think of them. So that's what today's video is going to be about. I did film this eye look. I will link it down below for you. And if you're new to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Rachel, and I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom who loves to play with colorful eyeshadow. If you're interested in seeing lots of colorful content on your timeline, you might want to consider liking and subscribing and hitting the notification bell, because I've been uploading at least 3 videos a week, sometimes every other day. Alright, I've got my computer in front of me because my phone is recording, so I'm just going to scooch to the side a little bit so that I can put up some pictures of what I'm talking about, and let's just dive right in. There's actually a lot to talk about. I can totally understand how people like Angelica Nyqvist are able to do this weekly because there are so many releases. There's a lot to talk about. I have to narrow it down at some point. And the ones I'm talking about today, there are a lot that are really quite pretty. So several of them I'm quite interested in. We'll get to that. We're going to start off with the Paradise Islands palette from Nomad Cosmetics. This is an 18-pan palette in very pastel tropical colors. It's got a lot of really pretty shades. It's got like a row of pinks and peaches, then the second row is more greens and blues, and then the third row is more blues and purples. I mean, I think the shades are all quite pretty. I've seen several reviews on this palette by this point, and generally people are saying it performs beautifully. Everything blends out quite nicely. There are only 3 deepening shades. There is a dark green, a dark blue, and a dark purple. I think the dark blue out of those 3 is probably the lightest of them. The dark green is gorgeous. And what's really nice is that these deepening shades work with the shadows in the palette. Like the green can work with the greens and blues, the purple can work with the purples and the pinks, the blue can work with the blues and the greens and the yellows. Like everything would work well and nicely together. So I think it's well thought out. It's a little hard to tell which of these shadows are shimmers. My guess would be that there's a light pink shimmer, maybe a yellowy green shimmer, a mid-toned blue shimmer, and I think a purple and pink shimmer. I'm not exactly sure which ones are shimmers, but I think overall it's a really pretty palette. It's coming onto the scene on the heels of the Natasha Denona palette, and this is a more affordable version. And hey, if it blends out really beautifully and works nicely, I think it's probably a great option. I do really like some of the color schemes that Nomad has been coming out with lately, so I've got my eye on the Nomad brand. This particular palette doesn't super excite me simply because I'm not really into pastels, and I think I have a lot of these colors in other palettes, but I think it is really pretty. Let's talk about the Compass of Creativity Quad Shadow Collection. There are 4 palettes within this collection. They kind of remind me of the Huda Beauty Wild Obsessions palette, like the Jaguar and the Wild Greens. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll try to find a picture to compare. There's one palette in this collection especially which reminds me of those, and it's the top one. It's got like a bright pop of yellow and then some grungy green browns and then like a teal and spring green. It's an interesting color story. There's also a more yellow brown tone palette and then a more pinky tone palette and then a blue purple palette as well, which the last 2 are very reminiscent of the Beauty Bay launches, the Berries and Midnight palettes. But these palettes are all really pretty. I don't know anything at all about Be Perfect Cosmetics. I've never tried their brand. I have heard good things about them, and I know that their Carnival and Tahiti palettes are like really popular. So, I mean, if you like these color stories and you like the brand, they're probably a good buy. I don't see a lot of variety within the depths of the shades, except within the yellow and brown palette and the more berry pink toned palette. Both of those have a decent variety of light, medium, dark. But the other 2, the green brown and then the blue and purple, they all look pretty dark, especially the green brown. The blue purple has like has a minty blue color in there, but overall it's a pretty dark palette. But hey, if you like the brand and you like these colors, they might be a really good purchase for you. And they're 9 pans, so they're not really big or overwhelming in size, and they're also not so small that you don't have any options. I think they're pretty. I probably won't get any of these unless I find them for a good price, but I think they are pretty. So Melt has re-released the Gemini palette. They've got the Gemini 1, which I guess is their re-release of their old Gemini palette, which apparently people had some issues with, and there's now also a Gemini 2. When I look at these palettes side by side, I think they're pretty, but I also think they're quite similar. Both palettes seem to have more grungy green-brown tones. The Gemini 1 definitely has more of them, more earth tones and greens with a bit of a yellow hint. And then the Gemini 2 is more rosy reddish tones. It's got some pinky reds in there. But overall, I think the palettes are really similar. I don't have any experience with the Gemini palette itself. I have one melt palette, and it's the Amor y Mariposas palette, which I think is amazing. But I don't know anything about the Gemini. I think these colors are pretty, but they're not anything new or exciting to me. I do like the packaging. I think that the roses are quite pretty. And if I were to get one of the two, I would go for the Gemini 2, which is the rosy, pinky, red side of things. But honestly, I don't think I'll pick up either of these because they don't really add anything new or interesting to my collection. And for the price point, I'm not willing to experiment and find out. Okay, so this palette I can't not talk about. It is the Dragon Fruit palette, a collaboration between Cleona and Emily Violet Marie. I don't know Emily Violet Marie. I think I saw a picture of her advertising this palette. I've never seen her content, but this palette's really, really pretty. It's all shimmers, which makes me go, oh. However, I have the Hella palette now. It's probably a beautiful companion for the Hella palette because it's the pink and green with a little bit of yellow color story, and that's what Hella is as well. So if you want to combine the two, you could get all the mattes from Hella and all the shimmers from Cleona. I have seen incredibly great reviews for Cleona shadows in general, but especially their shimmers. They're apparently quite beautiful, and this looks like a really pretty collaboration. I did watch Angie's video for this palette, and she did pair it with the Hella palette. She got a beautiful look, and she was saying that she loves the mattes as well as the shimmers, and she was sort of hoping that the Dragon Fruit palette would have both so that people who know Cleona for their shimmers would be exposed to their mattes, and it would probably be a good selling point for the brand. However, the collaborator also needs to be true to themselves and their own personal style, and it seems that Emily Violet Marie really likes her shimmers, so it's not really a great surprise to many people that this palette is all shimmers. I think it's beautiful. I think the color story is really pretty. There are two shadows within this palette which are like twice the size. I'm assuming that those can be used as really pretty highlighter shades as well. And I think it's beautiful. It's not the most economical palette. The collection also includes blushes and nail polishes, I think, and some other things. I always look at the palettes. I'm not super interested in the rest of a collection. But I definitely would be interested in this if I could find it for a good deal at some point. I'm sure I'm not going to get it for a good deal when it's newly launched, but maybe 6 or 8 months down the road, someone's decluttering and I find it on Poshmark or Mercari, and yeah, I would consider getting it. Sigma recently released a new palette called the Nomad. It's more neutral. It's got some rose gold kinds of colors. I wonder how much those colors are actually rose gold and how much are the packaging of the gold next to the pinks of the shadows that make it look rose gold. I'm not sure. The swatches of the palette seem to be really pretty, and I've heard a lot of great reviews in general about Sigma shadows. Not 100% great. I have heard some people say that they just can't get Sigma to work for them, but I personally don't have experience with Sigma. I think that this palette's pretty. It doesn't really excite me. It has too many neutrals. If I were to get a Sigma palette, I have looked and considered the Cinderella palette, but at the end of the day, I still don't think I'd reach for it. It's just not exciting enough. And so I think the Nomad palette is pretty. It's probably going to be a great staple palette in a lot of people's collections, just not mine. Menagerie Cosmetics has released a new palette. It's so cute. I also have my eye on Menagerie. It's another brand where their color stories really capture my attention and they're interesting, and their packaging is really creative as well. It's not standard run-of-the-mill. It's colorful and it's vibrant and it's very creative. So Menagerie's new palette is the Sugar High Artistry palette. I think that it's sort of themed around one of the owner's pets. I think, I could be wrong, but anyway, it's just really cute, and the packaging is adorable and very bright and vibrant. It kind of reminds me of Lisa Frank. I know some brand recently did a collab with Lisa Frank. That collab in no way interested me, but when I was a little girl, I loved Lisa Frank. I loved the vibrant, saturated, like hyper saturated colors of all the Lisa Frank stuff. I had a Lisa Frank lunchbox and a Lisa Frank backpack and Lisa Frank all kinds of things. And this Sugar High palette makes me think of that because of the color saturation. I think it's really, really pretty. I think the colors are well chosen and interesting. There's a decent variety of light, medium, dark tones. The shimmers look really gorgeous. And overall, you could get some very colorful looks. It seems like you can probably get several looks from just this palette alone because you've got like a light toned pink or blue, and then you could add in more medium tones and put on a shimmer and there's your look. Or you could do just a once over and done, or you could just deepen out your outer corner. There's a dark blue, a dark red, I think. So there's a good variety of shades within a relatively small palette, and I really like the size of the palette. It's not too big and it's not too little. I think it's really cute. Again, price point, this is not really for me unless I found it on sale. I'm kind of used to ColourPop prices, and now that my husband and I are on a much stricter budget than we were when I first started eyeshadow, it's more of a challenge for me to get the newer stuff, because the stuff that I'm really interested in, even ColourPop, I don't have a lot of extra money hanging around to go spend on eyeshadow palettes. But the stuff I'm really interested in, I absolutely keep my eye out, and now and then I will get one for a great price. So if I could find this little Sugar High palette, I think it would be a great companion for a lot of other palettes, because it has these really vibrant colors. So you could take a pastel palette or a more neutral palette and do like your standard look, and then throw on a really bright color and just go to town. So here's a collection in which I'm not at all interested in, despite experience with this in my childhood. Wet n Wild is releasing a Care Bears collaboration. It's a whole collection. There are lip products and tools, sprays, sponges, all kinds of stuff. I'm just going to talk about the palette. The palette is kind of a rainbow palette. It's like a pastel sort of rainbow. There are a couple of darker colors. There's a bright teal, a bright orange, some purpley and pink berry tones, which are pretty. And then they've got some lighter tones as well in the yellow and green range. There's a nice pretty lavender. There are two reasons that this palette doesn't interest me. I think the colors are cute. I think a couple of these colors are kind of unique, particularly that more teal shade. However, it's Wet n Wild, so I know it's not great quality, and even if they have upped their game a bit and their quality is better than my last experience with Wet n Wild, I have so much eyeshadow at this point, I don't want to take a risk on something that's probably not great, because I have some stuff that is great. I'd rather use what I have and really, really enjoy the result. This palette also has several pressed glitters, which in no way interest me. At this point, I'm not interested in buying a palette, even if it has just one pressed glitter. This one has, it looks like 3 or 4. So for me, that's a no. Like, if these shadows were mattes, it would be more appealing, but if they're glitters, absolutely not. Just no. I still have my childhood stuffed animal, which is a Care Bear. I meant to bring it down for this video, but my baby is napping in that room and I'm not going to take the chance of waking her. But it's a little purple Care Bear with a flower on her belly. So when I saw this collection, I was like, aw, and then that's as far as it went. I have no interest in this. I think the quality is probably not there, and I'm not interested in trying. Now, this palette I am interested in trying, quite. This is the Nocturnal palette from Glaminate. I think this palette's really pretty. I think it's really pretty. I think it's packaged well. It's appealing. It looks sleek. It looks sophisticated, unlike the Care Bears packaging. Of course, the price point is different. Care Bears was like 11 bucks. Nocturnal is almost 60. So there's a big difference. I'm sure there's a huge difference in quality as well. I think the Nocturnal palette's really pretty. It kind of reminds me a bit of Heather Austin's palette with Adept as far as these grungy or green yellows and burgundies go. But then it also has a really interesting periwinkle sort of shade, and it's got some blues and pinks. It's got a lovely deepening shade, which could work with all of them. I've seen swatches and videos on this palette. It looks beautiful. The shimmers look remarkable. I think that this one's really pretty. It's currently sold out, but if I can find it at some point, I would be very interested in picking it up. It looks very pretty. And then to close out this video, because I had to stop somewhere. There are so many things to talk about. I want to talk about the What's Up Beauty newest release called the Geodes Collection. It's an eyeshadow palette along with several matching nail polishes. The nail polishes look really pretty. They're like multi-chrome nail polishes. The eyeshadow palette, to be truthful, I was more interested in the teaser photos than in the final reveal, because the teaser photos showed this gorgeous packaging. Have you seen the outside of the packaging? I'll find a picture for you. It looks kind of like the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz package, except even prettier. I love the Geodes packaging. I love both of those packages, actually. I just think it's really beautifully done, and the way they captured all those details for an eyeshadow palette is quite lovely. But then when I saw the inside, again, I was less enthused. It's very pastel tones. It's got several neutrals. The shades are kind of purpley mauve. There looks to be a more creamy yellow, like a butter yellow color. There's a bit of a brighter yellow. There's a bit of a teal shimmer, I think. There's more of a grungy or yellowy brown, and then what looks to be a bit of a bricky sort of color. I think it's pretty, but once I saw the inside of the package, I just wasn't interested anymore. I was hoping that the inside would reflect the outer packaging and have these vibrant purples, kind of like the Paradise Fallen palette from Ace Beauté, just a beautiful variety of purple shadows and complementary colors, something that was better representative of the outer packaging, because personally I like it when the outer packaging tells me what's inside. Because when I see my palettes all lined up, I want to be able to look at the spine and remember what the package looks like and go, oh, those are the colors I want today. It's just a lot easier for me, especially if my palettes are lined up like a bookshelf or even stacked like this. You only see the spine. I want the package to reflect the shadows inside so that I remember what I've got. And so I think that this outer packaging is very pretty. Honestly, I think the colors of the palette itself, the shadow colors, are also quite pretty. It's just not quite exciting or deep enough for me. There's only one deepening shade, and it's that bricky one, and it's not even that deep. It's really more of a mid-tone. And to pair that bricky brown with, for example, the light lavender, I'm not sure how well that would look. So I wish that there were a very deep berry or a very royal purple would be good deepening shades for the rest of these colors. There could also be discrepancy between real life and how it shows up on your device's screen, so I'll have to give it a little bit of leeway for that. But I think the palette's packaging is very pretty, and I think that some of the shadows on the inside are pretty. It's probably, again, a really great fit for someone who's a little bit more neutral leaning but wants a bit of spice and color, and I think it's pretty for that. It's just not quite for me. So there you go. That's my Eye It or Buy It episode number 2. Again, there were so many things that I could have talked about, and I had a list growing in my phone. I'm like, man, I just need to make this video and get rid of this list and start the next list because it could be a lot. They could be really long videos. Anyway, I hope you like it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see lots more. This series is now a playlist on my channel. Currently, it's only got 2 videos, but I have every expectation of having that grow. And until I see you again, I hope you have a really nice day. Bye!